The Mafia. Just the name sends chills down your spine. It conjures up images of dark alleys, smoky backrooms, and men in pinstripe suits. But where did these figures come from? To understand the Mafia in America, we need to go back to their roots, to the sun-drenched island of Sicily. Sicily, in the late 19th century, was a place of poverty and unrest. The common people were struggling and they had little faith in the government. Out of this despair, a secret society emerged. They called themselves mafiosi, men of honor, protectors of their own. These early mafiosi lived by a strict code of silence and loyalty. As Italians started immigrating to America in search of a better life, they brought their traditions with them. The early 1900s saw a wave of Italian immigrants arriving on American shores. They were looking for opportunity, a chance to build a new life. But they faced discrimination, poverty, and limited prospects. In the midst of this struggle, the familiar shadow of the Mafia began to spread. One of the earliest forms the Mafia took in America was the Black Hand. This group instilled fear through threats, extortion, and violence. They preyed on their fellow immigrants, exploiting their vulnerability. The police were often ill-equipped or unwilling to help. While the Black Hand thrived on fear and extortion, a new breed of mafiosi was emerging. They saw an opportunity in the chaos of early 20th century America, a chance to build empires. These were not just thugs. They were businessmen, strategists, and ruthless opportunists. The catalyst for their rise was prohibition. In 1920, America outlawed the production and sale of alcohol. But people still craved their liquor, and the Mafia was ready to supply it. Bootlegging became a gold mine, and the Mafia seized control of the illegal alcohol trade. With their newfound wealth, they expanded their influence. The 1920s, a time of jazz, flappers, and speakeasies. It was the era of prohibition, and America had developed a thirst that only the mob could quench. With each illegal shipment of liquor, the Mafia's coffers grew fatter, and their influence spread wider. Cities like New York and Chicago became battlegrounds. Rival gangs, each vying for control of the lucrative bootlegging operations, clashed in a shower of bullets. The public was both captivated and horrified by these modern-day outlaws. No figure embodied the rise of the Mafia in the 1920s more than Al Capone. With his trademark scar and ruthless demeanor, Capone became a legend in his own time. He ruled Chicago with an iron fist, his empire built on a foundation of bootlegging, gambling, and murder. Capone understood the power of image. He flaunted his wealth, dressed to the nines, and always had a photographer nearby. He wanted the world to see him not as a criminal, but as a businessman, a man of the people. But beneath the expensive suits and the charming smile was a cold-blooded killer. The St. Valentine's Day massacre solidified Capone's reputation as a ruthless and untouchable kingpin. While Capone grabbed the headlines, a new generation of mobsters was waiting in the wings. These were not just street thugs, they were educated, ambitious, and eager to modernize the Mafia's operations. One such figure was Charles "Lucky" Luciano. A cunning strategist, Luciano recognized the need for organization and cooperation in the increasingly complex world of organized crime. This vision led to the formation of the Commission. Established in 1931, this council of Mafia leaders aimed to bring structure and stability to the underworld. The Mafia was evolving, adapting to the changing times. The Second World War brought about profound changes in America, and the Mafia was not immune to its effects. With the war's end came a period of economic prosperity, but also a shift in the underworld's power dynamics. The old guard, men like Capone, were fading. Capone himself had been imprisoned for tax evasion in 1931. This new era belonged to the likes of Lucky Luciano and his contemporaries, men who saw the potential for profit in a booming post-war economy. They turned their attention to new ventures. The Mafia infiltrated legitimate businesses, using their ill-gotten gains to corrupt officials and secure contracts. One of the most significant developments in the post-war years was the Mafia's infiltration of labor unions. The rapid growth of unions during and after the war provided fertile ground for organized crime to take root. The Teamsters, a powerful union representing truck drivers, became a prime target. Mob-connected figures rose to positions of power within the union, exploiting their influence for personal gain. They rigged elections, embezzled funds, and extorted businesses through threats of strikes and labor unrest. This corruption had a profound impact on American industries. For years, the Mafia operated largely in the shadows, their influence whispered about but rarely exposed to the harsh light of public scrutiny. That changed in the early 1950s with the Kefauver hearings. Led by Senator Estes Kefauver, a Senate committee launched a nationwide investigation into organized crime. The hearings, broadcast live on television, captivated the nation. Millions tuned in to watch as mobsters, law enforcement officials and informants took the stand. The hearings revealed the shocking reach of the Mafia's influence. The 1970s saw the rise of a new breed of mob boss, one who wasn't afraid of the limelight. John Gotti, head of the Gambino crime family, cultivated a public persona that was as much about style as it was about substance. He was often seen at trendy nightclubs, impeccably dressed in expensive suits, surrounded by an entourage of loyal followers. Gotti understood the power of image. He played to the cameras, relishing the attention of the press. His nickname, the Teflon Don, stemmed from his uncanny ability to evade convictions. This only added to his mystique, making him seem invincible. His high profile made him a prime target for law enforcement. From Little Italy to Las Vegas, the expansion of the family business. While Gotti grabbed headlines in New York, the Mafia's reach extended far beyond the city's 5 boroughs. Las Vegas, with its glittering casinos and promise of easy fortunes, had long been a target for organized crime. The Mafia's involvement in Las Vegas dated back to the 1940s, when mob money helped finance the construction of some of the city's earliest casinos. They infiltrated casinos, skimming profits and using them to launder dirty money. Las Vegas became a playground for the mob, a symbol of their wealth and influence. Drugs, unions, and politics, the web of influence. The Mafia's tentacles reached deep into American society. Their influence felt in a wide range of industries. They controlled unions, extorting businesses, and manipulating labor contracts for their own gain. They infiltrated construction projects, driving up costs and lining their pockets with illicit profits. The drug trade, however, became one of their most lucrative endeavors. The rise of heroin and cocaine use in the 1970s created a massive demand, and the Mafia was quick to capitalize on it. The profits from the drug trade were astronomical, fueling further expansion and corruption. The Appalachian Meeting and its aftermath are gathering exposed. Despite their growing wealth and influence, the Mafia's grip on America was not unchallenged. Law enforcement agencies, though often outmaneuvered and outmatched, were beginning to make inroads in their fight against organized crime. The Appalachian Meeting of 1957 proved to be a turning point. This gathering of over 100 Mafia leaders from across the country, held in a small town in upstate New York, was meant to be a secret conclave. However, the sheer number of luxury cars converging on the small town aroused suspicion, leading to a police raid. The Appalachian Meeting marked the beginning of a more concerted effort to dismantle organized crime in America. The glitz and glamour of the Mafia's heyday couldn't outshine the harsh reality of their crimes forever. The public, once captivated by the image of the charming rogue, grew increasingly wary of the violence and corruption that followed in the mob's wake. Law enforcement agencies, emboldened by public pressure and armed with new strategies, began to chip away at the Mafia's foundations. The FBI, under the leadership of directors like J. Edgar Hoover and later William Webster, made dismantling organized crime a top priority. They established specialized task forces dedicated to investigating and prosecuting Mafia figures. These agents, often working undercover for years, infiltrated the mob's inner circles, gathering evidence and building cases brick by painstaking brick. The rules of the game were changing and the mob found themselves increasingly vulnerable. Section 2. The RICO Act, a powerful weapon against organized crime. In 1970, Congress passed the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO, a game changer in the fight against organized crime. Prior to RICO, prosecutors struggled to connect individual mobsters to the larger criminal enterprises they controlled. They could put a hitman behind bars for a single murder. But proving his connection to the boss who ordered the hit and the network that profited from it was a far greater challenge. RICO changed all that. It allowed prosecutors to target not just individual acts of crime, but the entire criminal enterprise itself. They could go after the heads of these organizations, holding them accountable for the actions of their underlings. The RICO Act, along with increased resources for law enforcement and a growing willingness to testify against the mob, began to turn the tide. Major trials, once a rarity, became more common. Section 3. Internal strife and the decline of Omerta, the walls begin to crumble. The Mafia's strength had always rested on two pillars, loyalty and silence. Omerta, the code of silence, ensured that secrets stayed buried, witnesses intimidated, and law enforcement kept in the dark. But as the pressure mounted, cracks began to appear in this seemingly impenetrable wall. Greed and ambition, the very forces that propelled the Mafia's rise, also sowed the seeds of its decline. Internal power struggles, once settled with a discreet meeting and a handshake, erupted into bloody conflicts. Informants, once a rarity, became increasingly common. The Mafia, built on a foundation of trust and silence, found its foundations crumbling from within. Section 1. The cost of doing business. The Mafia's enduring impact. The Mafia's grip on America may have loosened, but their story is far from over. The scars of their reign are still visible, a reminder of the cost of doing business with the underworld. From the streets of New York to the casinos of Las Vegas, they left a trail of broken lives and shattered dreams. Their influence corrupted unions, crippled businesses, and undermined faith in institutions. The drug trade, fueled by their greed, ravaged communities and claimed countless lives. The violence they unleashed, often portrayed with a romanticized flair in movies and TV shows, was a brutal reality for those caught in the crossfire. The Mafia's story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that unchecked power, no matter how alluring, ultimately comes at a steep price. It reminds us that the lines between right and wrong are easily blurred, and that even the most seemingly legitimate enterprises can be corrupted by greed and ambition. Section 2. From Shadows to Celluloid, the legacy of La Cosa Nostra. While the Mafia's influence in the real world has waned, their grip on the public imagination remains as strong as ever. From classic films like The Godfather to modern television series like The Sopranos, the Mafia continues to fascinate and horrify us. These stories, often told with a mix of grit and glamour, offer a glimpse into a world shrouded in secrecy and bound by its own code of honor. They explore themes of loyalty, betrayal, family, and ambition, drawing us into a world where the stakes are high and the consequences dire. But these portrayals, however captivating, often romanticize a brutal reality. They risk glamorizing a life of crime, obscuring the human cost of the Mafia's actions. As we consume these stories, it's important to remember the real-world impact of organized crime, the lives shattered and the communities torn apart. The Mafia's story, both real and imagined, serves as a stark reminder of the enduring allure and the devastating consequences of power wielded in the shadows.